After 14 seasons on Mythbusters and now Mythbusters Junior, everybody's favorite creator, maker, breaker guy, Adam Savage, is here right now. Adam, it's so cool to see you.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy you're here. You wrote a book that's in defense of passion and obsession.
Yes.
Obsession is not necessarily a bad thing. There's good obsession and there's unhealthy obsession. I love the fact that you're bringing this up because a lot of us feel really weird and geeky.
You know,
talking about our
and that's
obsession.
the thing is that I realized that all those things that I was attracted to when I was 12, 13 years old, the movies and the storylines and the books that I was reading, they woke really important things up in me. But I was afraid to share those with my peers because when you're passionate about something, it makes you vulnerable. And I wanted to write a book that was a permission slip to people to follow and share those passions that they have.
Well, sure, you're in middle school. I mean, you got gym lockers and wedgies and everything else. And we know that is the time when you're told you need to conform.
Yes.
You want to fit in. So what do you do when you have that creative bent and you need that permission to go ahead and pursue that when everything around you, because your peers have 100% credibility, your parents have none. You had very supportive parents.
Yeah.
And I guess in your case, that was enough for you to continue along.
My parents were incredibly supportive, and I was very lucky in that regard. There are ways in which the web and social media are not just toxic cesspools because they can allow one to find their peer group. No matter what your strange passion is, there is a group online that is discussing it.
Right.
And if you can find those folks, they really can help encourage you to follow the thing that you're doing and help you do your research.
Yeah, that's true. That is the upside to what can be a toxic cesspool. That's a very good point. It is a haven for geeks everywhere. And geek is not a bad word. It means you're passionate.
Exactly. To me, these communities that dive into the minutia of something that's important to them, whenever you peel the layers of an onion of something and really start to go all the way, as I say in the book, through the wormhole, through the bottom of the rabbit hole, you're going to find yourself. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for those things that resonate with the strings inside of us that allow us to participate in our culture. Because to me, ultimately, when you follow those passions, they inspire you. And for me, they inspire me to make something. And for me, they inspire me to make physical things. But I also don't relegate making simply to the realm of physical objects. Making is storytelling. It's building films. It's making clothing. It's making tables. It's everything. Every time you reach out to make something from nothing.
Are you saying that we're building art right now?
You know, in the stories that you build here, you are totally working on narrative arcs. You are trying to get a hook, a hold, and a payoff. You're taking the audience somewhere. Absolutely.
And I like the part that you said about being vulnerable, because you and I are both kind of putting ourselves out here right now. Either of us could say something really stupid. Luckily, I can edit. You can't. You leave.
As I like to say, I'm one hot mic away from the end of my career.
Oh, and that's exhilarating too, isn't it? It is.
Yes.
There's nothing more exhilarating than walking that tightrope, or in your case, diving into a dumpster, and wondering what's going to happen. By the way, how did that turn out for you when you?
The diving into the dumpster, really, really fun to do. But the adrenaline, when you're standing at the edge of a building, looking 20 feet below you at a dumpster full of foam, your whole body is saying to you, stop this, get off of this ledge. Like all the alarms are going off. And then you jump and you're fine. And you have this adrenaline rush. And doing that all day long for Mythbusters, I was physically ill by the end of the day. Adrenaline and I don't get along. I
love how you dressed up in costume for that. You had a big, long, flowing black coat, which, by the way, I'll admit to you, I have one too. I do. You could have borrowed mine if you needed one. And in my case, I like to go camping and pretend that it's the 1860s.
Oh, nice.
And I got the cowboy hat and the whole thing, and I'd never admitted that before. You are into, is it pronounced cosplay?
Cosplay, yeah.
Okay. And that was kind of your coming out.
That was a breakout moment on Mythbusters. Yeah. So from a producing standpoint, we had this episode in which we had to find out how easy it was to jump into dumpsters like Keanu Reeves does in almost any movie. And I knew that there would be two halves to the first part of this episode. There'd be a training half where stuntman Randy Lamb would teach Jamie and I how to jump off buildings. And then there would be the testing phase. And again, from a producing standpoint, I wanted a separation between these. And I thought, okay, costume. Let's get sweatsuits that say stunt trainee for the first half, and for the second half, I want something really dramatic. And I realized, Keanu Reeves, I'll dress as Neo from The Matrix. So without telling my crew, I assembled this really accurate Neo costume. And then on the day of those tests, after I'd done some pieces to camera, I went over to my Land Cruiser and I changed into Neo, and I came around from behind and was confronted by my crew. Now, these are my family. They've all worked with me for more than a decade. And they saw me in the Neo costume and they all started suppressing church giggles. And
so for a second, you must have been like, oh, no, it's high school all over again.
Oh, yeah. No, for a second, I felt like I was 12 years old. I was totally exposed. I'm pinned and wriggling to the wall. And I realized what they see right through me. They see how into this I am, and they find it sweet. They're my family. They love me, right? So I feel that sense. But I also feel that sense of embarrassment because it's a weird hobby. I'm not making the world a better place directly with that hobby. And yet, following that interest for me is the engine of everything that I've achieved. And so I pay it the honor it deserves.
All right, I'm gonna read some quotes, and I want you to tell me who said these things.
Okay.
Okay. Obsessions are where ideas come from. You said that.
I did.
Obsessions are more than hobbies. They are passions. They have purpose. And I like this especially. We as a society have a jaundiced view of obsession. We conflate obsession with conditions like OCD. And that is true.
Well, so again, there are people who genuinely suffer, and OCD is a condition in DSM. It is a real thing that people struggle with, and I don't mean to make light of it in any way.
You didn't in the book.
What's that?
You didn't make light of it. Maybe
No.
my taking that isolated quote might have made it seem that way. But no, explain
like
that.
if anybody out there suffers from this, I want to say I really understand that suffering. What I'm talking about is a separate, I think, creative desire that drives us to keep digging, to keep on peeling, as I said, layers of the onion until you've explored something to its most minute degree.
But when you've gone 4 days without showering or eating, that might be a problem.
The thing for me, I came to this understanding as I kept on thinking of physics and the emotions and mental process of making. And I realized that I think obsession is the gravity of making. That anything that happens that is truly excellent, whether it's a play or a book or a dance or a performance, it's excellent because somebody was obsessed, because somebody took the time to make it as excellent as they possibly could.
And you talk about the vulnerability. That's part and parcel of that. And you said that even as you wrote this book, you felt a frightening vulnerability.
I'm revealing a lot about myself in this book. I'm revealing things that I have revealed before. I'm revealing things that I haven't. As I was fleshing out these stories and thinking of ways to make them resonant, I kept on redounding to personal stories to explain the wrong turns I took to understand this or that thing, and the friendships that sometimes I lost because I screwed things up so badly. These are the ways that we learn, and I wanted to be really honest about it because, to me, sharing the experience that nobody escapes from those self-doubts, nobody escapes from the imposter complex, nobody escapes from that vulnerability, no matter how successful you get.
The imposter complex. We all know that. Waiting for the tap on the shoulder saying, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here.
Pervasive.
I know. I can see right through you. I know that you're not worthy. Yeah, you never quite get over it. Maybe that's a good thing that you never totally get over that.
No, nor should you. The moment you think you're over the imposter complex, life is about to smack you so hard in the face.
Yeah.
I was having lunch with a friend who's my age just a few years ago, and I mentioned imposter complex offhand, and he stopped me and he was like, what is that? And I explained it, and he blanched. He looked sheet white, and if there was a camera move on this scene, it would have been a dolly in zoom out like Kubrick, right? The background extending into infinity. And he said, I thought it was only me. And I thought, oh my God, if you don't know about this, then I need to help normalize the fact that all of us feel this all the time.
It's a universal thing. That's true. There's so many things that we think only apply to us, and then you realize, wait a minute, this is actually a normal and maybe even healthy condition. You talked about getting smacked in the face. You literally got hit in the head. I love what you're talking about, what a mess your life used to be when you were living in Brooklyn, and your cat, wait, I have the cat's name in here somewhere.
Regis.
Regis. How could I forget that?
Of course.
Why'd you name your cat Regis?
Because I love Regis Philbin.
Who doesn't love Regis Philbin?
And Regis is a great name. And I think that I called my cat Regis because at that point, I mean, Regis Philbin has been ubiquitous in New York forever. But at that point that I got that cat, I realized that Regis Philbin had been a star since the 60s.
Right.
Like, Regis Philbin had been a fixture far longer than I had possibly imagined. And I was like, this is an important name.
And Regis knocked a potted plant on your head while you were sleeping.
It's like all the ways in which we were horribly filthy in our early 20s. I was all of those things.
Yeah.
And I did not clean. I don't think I changed those sheets. I think I brushed all the dirt off the sheets, and then I slept in that bed for another week or two. It was disgusting.
It got a little muddy and sweaty and grimy after a while. But you got your act together. You actually inspired me to go out and clean my workbench after reading this. Because organization, people say, well, it's a sign of a sick mind, right? But quite the contrary. It allows you, it's a gift from your present self to your future self, you said, and I love that.
This is a relationship I've come to understand deeply for me, and the analogy works really well, that when I am sweeping up my shop at the end of the day, and I never want to, there's never an end of the day where I'm like, boy, I want to put away all these tools and sweep up this shop. But each time I do it, I know that I'm sending a message to tomorrow morning's me that this has a value, and I want you to come into a clean shop and a clean headspace in order to figure out what to do. And that's a really lovely grace that we can give ourselves.
Now, because if you have an idea and you want to jump in, and you go to a cluttered space, you're like, oh, I got to deal with all this now before I can get to it. It's the energy and momentum out of your whole process. And
there's a lot of people that are sitting there waiting for all the things to be in the right place. This is actually another aspect of this. There's a lot of people who are like, I don't want to get started until I have the right workbench, the right pencil, the right blank sheet of paper, the right canvas. And one of the other things I exhort people to do here is to just start. Grab corrugated cardboard and a hot glue gun and start making the thing. Grab a pencil and start sketching. There is no perfect time. There's no perfect set of circumstances.
By the way, why is your book hard and mine soft?
You got one of the very earliest copies, which means it's riddled with typos.
Which means it's a collector's item. I'm going to hang on to this.
I'll sign it for you before
Although I have marked it up considerably. What else did I see in here? Oh, lists. Lists.
I love lists.
I always thought that lists, again, something's wrong with you if you're a crazy list maker. And then I realized, wait a minute, I guess something's wrong with me because, and I brought in a prop. Well, when you were a kid, you said what was new at the time was this thing called cable TV.
Oh yeah, we got more than 4 channels.
Well, here's where Adam Savage and myself have a similarity. I want to show you what I drew up. This is pre-cable. I'm a little bit older than you, a couple of years older than you. That's right before cable TV. There's all the broadcast over-the-air channels.
Oh my God, you were that grown to do what you do.
Exactly. Exactly. I have a separate sheet of radio stations.
That's amazing. This makes me so happy. This type of, I mean, the fact that you also color-coded them.
Yes.
And it looks
Blue
like
is New York, red is Philadelphia.
Amazing. You know the four color map theorem?
No.
That there is no that 4 colors is the minimum number of colors you need for coloring in any map, such that no 2 colors touch each other.
Oh, okay.
And it took the longest time for this to be proven mathematically. I'm obsessed
4
with
is
this.
all you need? How many did I use?
4 is all you need. I think you have 5 or 6 here.
See, I was
more
intuitive.
than you need.
Yeah, I overdid it then. I'm over the top, typically.
The level of specificity is so delightful.
I'm very proud of that. Thank you. I had to
Kevin
show it
Kelly, who started Wired Magazine, is a friend of mine. And he was stapling together magazines at the age of 7 or 8. He's always wanted to make magazines.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
That's his way of organizing and creating.
Exactly.
Should we?
Gosh, what a beautiful document.
Hey, Neil, I'm very proud of this. Oh, it's Lisa. What have you done with Neil? What camera should here? I'm gonna do this. I'm very proud of this, everybody. All right. This one here. This one here. How good is that? Huh? Look at that. Okay, the self-indulgence portion of our broadcast is over now. But it leads me to what happened to you next after you made your list of all of the new cable channels that were just popping up, that new thing called cable TV.
It was the early HBO started its incredible partnership with George Carlin.
Right.
And I was there at the beginning. And aside from the novelty of seeing somebody curse on the small television, I was raised on a steady diet of inappropriate European films that my parents took me to. But seeing this on regular television was astounding. And George Carlin had this famous routine, the 7 dirty words you can't say on television.
And that's a list.
That's a list, just 7. But then he finished, I think that he did that twice on HBO. And the second time he finished with this long list of every curse he could think of. And we didn't have DVR. So every time it played, I was transcribing as many as I could until I had all of them. And then I alphabetized them, indexed them on separate index cards, and put them in alphabetical order in a card file I believe I still have somewhere in storage.
Oh, you got to bust those out. Oh, we got to see those.
I'm not sure if I added definitions, but it was such a. One of my proclivities is I love to collect collections. I love agglomerations of things, and the idea that I was possessing all the curse words at 11 years old, that was intoxicating.
There might be new ones now.
Oh, I'm sure.
You may have to revise that list.
There were so many I didn't know, and I remember my little brain thinking, like, I wonder what that means.
Now, did you share that with your peers? Not your parents.
No, I don't. No. I don't think I shared it with anybody. I don't remember discussing it with anyone. I just remember carefully doing this craft project that was all curses, and that also kind of made me. There was the idea that this harmless metal box housed all of this obscenity. Also made me very happy.
A lunchbox full of lascivious words. I love it. The tools of creation you fear are being kept out of the hands of our most dynamic and creative minds, and the world needs more makers. And that's one of the things you hope to accomplish here. So why is it that people who are having universe-given, God-given talents don't realize that? What happens?
Well, we have no problem culturally understanding and agreeing that kids need what we call STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Will.i.am, I believe, coined putting the A in STEM for arts and calling it STEAM because they're a critical part. But the arts is often, when budget cuts happen, the arts are what suffers in high schools and colleges around the country. We lose our drama departments. We lose our shop classes. We lose our auto shop classes. And all these are, to me, really, really important parts of being a person, I learned sewing and home economics.
Me
and it
too.
was such a fundamentally important skill at Sleepy Hollow High School for me. These are formative things to be able to reach out and grab something. And I've heard about entry-level architectural colleges in the U.S. are having trouble with new students because they literally don't know how to glue two things together.
Please tell me you're making that up.
No.
That is frightening.
To me, way back in let's see, like in the 16th century, you either had a wooden spoon you carved yourself or you had a silver spoon that someone made for you. Right. You were either poor or rich. There wasn't really a middle ground. Then the Industrial Revolution happens. They stamp forks and knives out of metal, and everyone can have one. And we all have the same ones now. But we're moving towards a world that I envision where rapid prototyping becomes rapid manufacturing, and I could buy my next iPhone case from a kid down the street, made exactly to my specs, made during a relationship with someone I know.
With their 3D printer or whatever.
That level of bespoke, perfect adjustment is accessible to everybody. Yeah. But it requires us raising a generation of digital natives who are comfortable with this technology. And, as William Gibson says, the future is here. It's just not evenly distributed. And to me, we need to make sure that there are maker spaces for all kids to be able to explore the power of making something from nothing. That is a power, and it's a superpower.
It is, particularly if, and I don't know how you feel about this, but if the proverbial shit hits the fan and everything goes down, who's going to survive?
The makers. And the arts, honestly, one of the things I got my start in theater, and one of the things I've always loved about theater is I consider it the art form that will survive an apocalypse completely intact.
That's right.
The morning after an apocalypse, if there's 20 people left in New York City, they're going to gather around a campfire and they're going to tell stories and they're going to act them out. That's theater.
Exactly right. And by the way, that leads me to, I want to express to you, and it may sound random, but my sorrow and condolences and sadness about the passing of Peter Mayhew. I assume that you being a big Star Wars fan, that must have hit you kind of hard.
It really hit me hard. A more generous, kind person and family. The Mayhews are legendarily sweet. They actually wrote to me afterwards and talked about the brief friendship that I enjoyed with Peter. I was lucky enough to call him a friend acquaintance. And he was amazing. Chewbacca is my favorite character, is my favorite non-human character in film.
Is that right?
Totally. And that is informed by Peter's amazing, incredible, nuanced performance as that character.
A friend of mine does a podcast, and he was playing different Chewbacca sounds, and he and his co-host were guessing which scene of which movie, and they were nailing them.
Wow.
And I'm not a Star Wars guy enough to be able to replicate it, but it was like, yeah, that's when he was upset about being handcuffed, and that's where... And he's just making that Chewbacca noise, but people are so into it, and it really did have an amazing impact on viewers.
Well, he's an incredible character because he has so much power and also so much tenderness. You can feel that grapple in him between the technological animal and the emotional animal. That he embodies a high level of both. And
people just loved him too. Mm-hmm. Can you do the voice? Can you do it? Wow!
Chewbacca is my.
That's really good.
I've made three Chewbacca
which movie
costumes.
was that? Which scene was that? You've made 3 Chewbacca costumes?
I have. And wearing a Chewbacca costume is so much fun because people lose their minds when they see a Chewbacca in person. They just come up and hug you so tight. They find it so emotional to see him there.
Did you wear stilts or something?
I wear 4-inch lifts on my shoes. I have these huge, tall boots, and with the head going about 4 or 5 inches above my head, I'm almost 7 feet tall, which is not canon. Chewbacca's taller than that,
right?
But it's tall enough.
I got to tell you something. I really think that anybody who wants to feel good about themselves and their geekiness, got to check this out. I really enjoyed it.
You know, I said at the beginning I wanted to be a permission slip, and when I read books by great makers, by artists, sorry, I don't mean to say that I'm a great maker or an artist, but when I read books by people who talk about making with enthusiasm, it makes my hands itch. It makes me want to get working, and that's what I hope people get out of this.
The deepest truths about your experience are universal truths. So said you.
Well, I'm quoting Emerson.
Oh, well, who?
Emerson says, to know that what is true in your secret heart is true for all, that is genius.
Wow, quoting Emerson. This is what you get here. Adam Savage, I really enjoyed talking to you.
Me too.
Good luck with the book. Good luck with Discovery Junior. What's on that?
Mythbusters Junior.
I'm sorry, Mythbusters.
Mythbusters Junior. Yes,
can we edit that
Junior
out? No, we can't.
Aired earlier this year, but on June 12th, I have a new show coming up on the Science Channel called Savage Builds. 8 episodes of absurd engineering with different collaborators and genius engineers and scientists every week. In the first episode, we made a set of 3D printed Iron Man armor out of titanium.
I love it. You see, you're not afraid to let all your inner geek freak flag fly.
Not
God
at
bless
all.
you. A pleasure.
A pleasure.